everyone. Welcome back to the breakdown of science. Today's episode is a Q&A where we're going to answer some of the questions that you've had from our previous episodes, as well as some questions regarding just general science topics. My name is Jan,
My name is Michelle.
And I'm Maruf.
and we will start with the questions we received regarding our first episode.
One question was like, who developed the James Webb Space Telescope? So in short term, GWST, and did they get an award for its invention? Well, it was developed through a collaboration led by NASA with significant contributions from the European Space Agency and also the Canadian Agency. So Northrop Grumman served as a prime contractor. He oversaw the design, the construction, and the integration of the observatory. And the main industry partners were Bow Aerospace, L3 Harris, Nisol, and Raytheon. Yeah, and Marv will tell you about the awards that they got.
Yeah, exactly. So for his work, he also got three awards. One was in 2022, and other two were in 2023. So 2022, he got Aviation Week Grand Literate Award, and 2023, yeah, he got two awards: Robert J. Collier Trophy and IAF World Space Awards, where IAF World Space Award was granted by the Astronautical Federation for outstanding contribution in space science and technology.
By the way, several Northrop Grumman employees also received NASA's highest honors for their exceptional contributions to this GWST project, which also includes like the Distinguished Public Service Medal and also the Exceptional Engineering Achievement Medal. Yeah, just really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is
Yeah.
indeed. And the next question we had was how far can you look with the James Webb Telescope, and have there been any other speculations about other exoplanets and whether there is a possibility of life on it? And the telescope itself, it can observe light that has traveled for like over 13.5 billion years. So basically, since the supposed creation or theorized creation of the universe. And it has found a couple of exoplanets that could host life, but there are no signs of life yet. As mentioned in our previous episode, the exoplanet K218b has potential traces of that dimethyl sulfide, which is a gas product by life on Earth, mainly marine plankton, but it's still yet to be confirmed whether there is actual dimethyl sulfide.
Yeah. We can find more about that in our first episode. Yeah. So in terms of like whether there are other speculations about other exoplanets, well, there's a system which is called TRAPPIST-1 system. We're just gonna call it TRAPPIST system because it's easier. So it's a system of 7 Earth-sized planets, where three of which are in the habitable zone. But again, there's no signs of life confirmed. So what the telescope does is that it studies the atmospheres of these planets to determine if they contain water, vapor, oxygen, or other common compounds. And so far, the early results have shown there's no thick hydrogen-rich atmospheres, which could mean that there is a better chance for rocky Earth-like conditions. But again, it's not confirmed whether there's actually life on it. Yeah.
It's still
Yes.
something that we have to look for. But
Yeah.
continuing on, that's it for the first episode. For our second episode questions, what do we have?
So in our second episode, also we got some questions. The first one is about like how exactly does insufficient sleep
Mm-hmm.
affect our memory consolidation? So to answer this question, we should know what is memory consolidation. So it's basically the process where your brain takes the temporary information and you have learned or experienced short-term memories, to be precise, and it converts it into more stable and long-lasting, like, type of storage, you can say, or long-term memories, what we usually say. So adequate sleep enhances this memory consolidation, and this happens primarily during specific stages of sleep, particularly when we are in deep sleep and we are in REM sleep. So basically, in deep sleep, or just one level above like deep sleep, which is REM sleep. During these stages, like, what our brain does is it actively works behind the scene, and it replays the neural activity patterns that occurred while we were learning or experiencing this during the day, and it helps for our memory to last long in our brain.
Yeah, and because these stages are like cut short or are less effective, your brain doesn't get the necessary time or opportunity to even perform the crucial replaying and strengthening of the process, and they remain fragile and are much harder to access or even can be lost. And this leads to like forgetfulness and difficulty in learning new information. And this is like similar to when you exercise a lot and you use your muscles, you have to have a period of rest so that the tissue of your muscles gets repaired and it gains strength. But if you don't have the proper rest, it will actually just be weakening your muscle even more and not be as helpful.
So exactly. So for our mental and physical purposes, sleep is really
Mm-hmm.
needed. I mean, it's compulsory, not an option. So yeah, that was it for our first question. The second question we got was, how does the stress, like sleep, work, and free time imbalance from overworking specifically, impair memory formation and recall? Like, is it temporary or long-term effect? So to answer this question, we should go with how all of this happens. So chronic stress from overworking, it gives us, like, increase the production of high stress hormones like cortisol. And what cortisol does is it can damage or interfere with your brain areas when it is in high amount, and it is also the area where which is responsible to have your memory, long-term memory. So brain areas which are vitals like hippocampus are damaged by this type of hormones, and this type of impairment, like, makes it difficult to have new memories, and as well as the existing ones which we already have, we cannot retract them from our memory, and that's the problem and the loop we got in if we don't have enough sleep or we have chronic stress.
Yeah, exactly. And now, whether it is a temporary or long-term effect, it's definitely a long-term effect because, acute stress causes temporary issues, and prolonged, so like chronic stress from overwork, can lead to more persistent memory problems and even like structural changes in the brain over time. So there's definitely a long-term consequences or like after effects of stress from overworking. Yeah.
It's exactly. So also we got some statistics about how sleep deprived we are. I mean, in Europe, like European countries like Sweden and Poland, more than 50% or 51% of people in last 12 months doesn't have enough sleep. Report shows in Statista we have the statistics, and more than, like, around 44% of German people are sleep deprived. So it's a real problem, and kind of pandemic around the world, and it's getting higher and higher.
Okay. Now, another question was like, has there been a case where inadequate sleep has seriously impacted an individual? But I linked into it, and there has been a case, like, I think it was in 1967. One second. No, it was in 1964. Yeah. So there was a student named Randy Gardner. He was a 17-year-old at that time, and he stayed awake for 264 hours, so 11 days, as part of a science fair project. So the effects were like he experienced severe cognitive and behavioral changes like mood swings, memory loss, paranoia, hallucinations, and he also had difficulty in concentrating. And well, gladly he recovered fully, like after sleeping for about 14 hours, but his case remains as a famous example for mental and physical toll of extreme sleep and deprivation. Sleep deprivation. Yeah. Another question is some people, like when they're sleep deprived, they have incredible high energy, whereas others, when they have overslept, for example, they're drowsy and have no motivation to do anything. And the question is, like, why is it like that? Well, I think one of the reasons could be that your body treats sleep deprivation as like an emergency, where it triggers to release stress hormones that temporarily increase alertness and energy. And another reason could be that the brain tries to overcompensate for the fatigue by overstimulating certain areas to stay awake, which then results into impulsivity, restlessness, or even like euphoria in some individuals.
Or in some people, it could just be a genetic variation that makes them more resilient to the lack of sleep, though that's more of a rare case. And one of the reasons for you to feel drowsiness after oversleeping is that the circadian rhythm is being disrupted, and it can cause a feeling of jet lag, especially if it's inconsistent with the usual wake up time.
Exactly. And I think, as mentioned, neurotransmitters, for example, dopamine and serotonin, they actually help, regulate mood and the motivation. And if you've overslept, it can dampen their activity, which then leads to low energy and apathy. It is also one of the reasons where you feel drowsiness after you overslept.
Yep. And again, if you want to know more about how sleep impacts our health and how getting too much or too little also specifically impacts it, you can watch the second episode, The
Mm-hmm.
Cost of Sleep, to know more about.
Yeah, it's really interesting, you guys.
Yeah.
It's really
Not biased at all.
yes.
So, now some more general topic questions. The first one is on how do microscopes actually work? As in, how can they make things that are so small look so big?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting question for basic understanding of biology. I mean, when we were child, we are all very curious how microscope really works.
Mm,
So a microscope, what it does, it makes a very small or little thing look very large. And how it does is by property of light, which is called refraction. So the bending of light as it passes from the air into curved glass, its front glass element, the object lens, collects those bent rays, sorry, collect those bent rays from each point on the specimen and makes them cross again to form a closer and real image that already looks bigger because it takes up a wider angle to your eye. I mean, if you are looking at that, then it would be your eye. And the second lens, which is called the eyepiece, or it could be a camera, it magnifies that image once more, and that's how it looks even bigger.
Yeah. And the sharp, as in like how sharp the details appear, is set by the objectives, as in the objective lens that we mentioned. It's a numerical aperture, which is just a measure of how widely it gathers light. And by the light's wavelength, a higher numerical aperture and shorter wavelength resolve finer structures, while total magnification equals to the objective power times the eyepiece's power. And speaking of images, we have another one. one question regards to it.
Yeah, so the
Um,
question is,
do you want to say it or?
I can ask the question, you can
Yeah,
answer.
sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, the question is a lot of images and media show cells having a lot of room inside and between the different parts. So is that how it actually is, or how dense is a cell actually?
Well, to answer that, cells are much like, more crowded than most images, suggest, because inside they're like filled with organelles. So what it means is organs of the cell, and all of these and the cell itself are surrounded by membranes, which is you can imagine as thin layers of fat and protein that separate and protect different areas. So between these organelles, the cell is packed with proteins, molecules, and fluids, leaving like very little empty space. So instead of being spacious, a cell's interior is dense and busy, like a crowded city, even though pictures often show more open space to make things easier to see.
Yeah, also I saw there's a recent image which is much popular, getting much popular in the internet. And so people are calling it the most detailed image of a human cell, but it is kind of fake because the image is not an image of a human cell specifically, but of general eukaryotic cells, which humans, other animals, plants, and fungi have. So it's also not an image taken directly of a cell, which is not yet possible, but 3D reconstruction. So yeah, so it's a 3D reconstruction of what it should look like based on information gathered from multiple studies. So it's not a direct picture taken of cell
Yeah.
through microscope or something like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this image itself was in circulation back in like 2021 as well, not just now. Even back then, like the similar like claim of it being a detailed image, but it is in fact a fake in the sense that it's not a human cell. And the creator of it said that it's a shame that people were taking it and giving misconception. Um, his name was. Give me a minute. It was Gail McGill, who was a director of molecular visualization at the Harvard Medical School Center for Molecular and Cellular Dynamics, and who he and his team created these images that we are seeing right now.
Okay, so
But
he
you're
wasn't the
wrong.
one who, kind of did it out of proportion with the claims, right?
No, he didn't do the posts itself.
Okay.
Those were by just other people, other accounts on the one in 2021 was first started in Facebook,
Hmm.
and the one that's going now recently was posted actually at the start of this month in Twitter. So, as I said, uh, Gail uh, Gail McGill, he and his team created this, and he isn't the person who has posted it. This was actually posted once in Facebook back in 2021, and then again uh, recently, May, in the beginning of May, from a Twitter or X account called Microscopic Images. They just posted it with the same title, but it in fact isn't of a human cell.
Okay.
Miguel said that he was like, he was glad that people were interested in it, but also was a bit saddened that people were being were getting misunderstood by what it was actually showing.
Okay.
Anyway,
Thanks for the clarification.
yeah. So moving on to our final questions that we got. So in a magazine by Stanford University on innovation technology, they are talking about a new wave psychiatry and how electromagnetism can be used to treat depression. And the question is, seeing as Earth has its own electromagnetic field, how does it impact this treatment? So, the magnetic pulse used in depression therapy machines, like in this case, are quite strong, about 1 to 2 Teslas, the unit of measurement for this type of uh, for magnetic fields, whereas Earth's natural field is only roughly 500,000, so 5 divided by 100,000 Teslas. And so the planet's magnetism is about 100,000 times weaker and simply acts as a faint background noise that most clinics just zero out. And this tiny field during zero out this tiny field during device calibration, and even during solar storms, its influence is far too small to change the treatment's safety or even effectiveness, from what we could tell. And the pulse that is used in these treatments are usually very localized and for a short period of a few minutes, maybe even up to an hour in some cases. But Earth's magnetic field is dispersed throughout the entire planet and in a more constant state, so it's not that it won't be impacting the treatment. That was all the questions that we received.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for all of you who submitted your questions.
Yes, thank you.
Looking forward to many more coming from episodes we've already done, your general questions and things you just want to be informed on, as well as for our future topics that we will cover in our podcast. Thank you again for the questions and for listening.
Yeah. If you guys really interested into the topics, for example, about sleep deprivation and life on another planet, you just watch our first 2 episodes. Yeah.
Yep. Again, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
see you next week.
See you all next week. Bye.
Bye.